Welcome to Road to Redline, the #1 Porsche and car podcast celebrating the people and the stories behind the world's finest sports cars. Road to Redline is presented by YouTuber and magazine editor Lee Sibley, serial owner and columnist Joe Williams, and 993 owner Andy Brooks. Three enthusiasts on a mission to open doors and bring you the best stories, secrets and exclusives from the world of Porsche.
Good day, chaps.
Good evening.
Evening, how are we all?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How is everybody listening out there in the listeners' world? Hope you're all good.
Yeah, very much so. We've got an interesting guest on shortly, haven't we? We've been trying to get Ben on for a while, actually. Or
Yeah.
We've just not got round to it.
Yes, we've got Ben Mcloughlin. What does Ben do? He has worked for the Porsche Experience Centre for many years as a driving consultant, driving instructor. Does lots of other things with Porsche as well. I believe he does a lot of training for them. Train the trainer, that sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting to chat to Ben on all of those points. How the Experience Centre's had to cope with COVID. Yeah, how kind of racing, his racing career. And obviously he bagged a couple of championships fairly recently. So it's going to be awesome to hear about that. I'm sure he'll be as humble as ever.
Absolutely.
So... before we get Ben on, I just thought it'd be good to give a bit of a news bulletin because by the time this comes out, it'll be kind of in the public domain. So it'd be nice to chat about it. Porsche Classic is definitely upping its game in regards to what it provides classic cars and owners of these classic cars. So they've announced the availability of, we'll go with the big stuff first, availability of a new performance chassis for the 959, no less.
Wow.
35 years old this year. But I think,
what does that mean? Performance chassis? Is that suspension set?
Yeah. I mean, there's no great detail on that just yet. It's kind of, I think, kind of reading between the lines, potentially here, speculation, of course, that Porsche might be looking at kind of what Canepa's doing. And obviously they're reimagining the 959 and the whole kind of premise of that is classic car, give it modern technology, it's going to be even better. Your Porsche, as the original builders of these cars, has kind of looked to do the same thing. So that's cool. But also, interestingly, there's going to be performance chassis available for classics, including the 996. I asked in reference to the 996 specifically because we had some journalists had a roundtable chat with the guys from Porsche Classic and Porsche Exclusive in the week, and that will sit above. It's been developed in conjunction with Manthey Racing, so this is very much for serious track use. Because it will sit above the factory MO30 suspension. So. Firm, definitely not for daily use, but that would be cool. In terms of like the older classic stuff, there's new bespoke items available for classics, including sport wheels now. So if you want to maintain that sport look while perhaps getting rid of like the boat-like wheel on the older cars.
Steering wheel wise.
That's available now, which is really, really cool.
So it's almost like what would you call it? Aftermarket. Stuff,
retro,
but it's Porsche making it.
Exactly that. I think
retrofit kind of.
Exactly that. Possibly off the back of the success of things like PCCM Plus that was started last year, wasn't it? And the PCCM on the air-cooled cars before that, where it's just it's pucker Porsche stuff, but obviously it's available now. And actually, on the subject of PCCM Plus, which is the doubled in sat nav with Apple CarPlay for newer stuff. Obviously, after the popularity of the 996, a lot of 997 owners are saying, well, hey, when can we get this? Because it's the same technology, just with a different face, essentially, to fit the 997 dash. I pressed Porsche Classic on that, and the news was it's coming soon. We can essentially expect that for the start of next year. So that would be good for 997 owners. Bit of modernity and everyday practicality added in for that.
Oh, that's really interesting. How about things like alloy wheels? So take, say, the 959. I believe that they were limited on wheel size due to tyre technology at the time. So do you think they may have a larger wheel that they might be outputting for the 959 that can take the more readily available larger sizes of tyres that are available now?
I think that's totally possible. I mean, there's other companies. I think Paul, when we've had him on the podcast before, 959 owner, didn't he chat about he had an interest in the wheels at Canepa?
Yes, they definitely do that.
Yeah, so that that path and that technology is out there now, isn't it? So I think kind of Porsche perhaps might be kind of cottoning on to that. I don't know, but like I said, not a lot of great detail on the 959. I mean, I kind of asked the question, well, the 959's chassis was iconic from launch, wasn't it? Built by Bilstein, double damper per corner, self-leveling, PASM, the first iteration of PASM. Are you just going to rip that out and kind of put in something new? Which is, I'm not sure how I'd feel about that as a 959. And I think I prefer originality in terms of that kind of the collectability of the car, but nevertheless, it's being offered.
Oh, really interesting stuff to come.
It'd be interesting what the uptake's like, isn't it? Because it's going to be, it's not going to be cheap, is it? It's going to be fairly priced, being Porsche OEM kit. So I suppose it's kind of weighing up that side of things too. But it'd be interesting what the uptake's like.
I think so, because again, with the 996 chassis, and I asked, well, if what does that mean in terms of modern tech? And asked, well, are you putting PASM in essentially because it arrived for the 997 next, and that would kind of just give that extra flexibility. But it wasn't the case. It is more for this. It's a performance chassis with emphasis on performance. It will be for hardcore track use. So might be slightly missing the point there, I'd argue, but nevertheless, a cool development.
Yeah, let's see what comes of it. Cool.
Yeah. Let's get Ben on, shall we? Anyway,
let's do
Excellent. Let's do it.
Hello, Ben.
Hello.
Hello, Ben.
And we've got Andy here somewhere as well.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Lee's missing at the moment. He's on the road somewhere, so hopefully he'll join us in a little while.
Excellent. So, Ben, where do we start? I mean, you're, I think, fairly well known in the world of the Porsche Centre as being the track pro there, and obviously you've got a bit of racing history, and obviously your role actually extends a bit further with Porsche. What will be the short version in terms of what does Ben do?
Gosh, the short version.
Well, I read on your LinkedIn thing today that you've been with Porsche for 23 years.
Yeah, that's about right.
So, I think we've got plenty to talk about.
Late 90s. You're absolutely right. As a driving consultant, there's a good thing of us working up at the experience centres as driving consultants, as they call it, or instructors, if you want to call it that, coaches. Yeah. So being with that side of Porsche, as you say, 23 years. You've reminded me how long it is. Or how long it's been. So.
Did you start when you were 12? Because you still look that young.
Oh,
that's the scary thing.
You're very kind. It's the lovely light pouring through the window. Obviously, I started in this industry in 1996 at the Ian Taylor Motor Racing School, which is now called the Transaxle Motorsport Centre.
Yeah.
The brilliant racing school, if you want to call it that, up at Transaxle. And I was racing karts and racing karting into cars, as many people do, and that was all progressing nicely. And went off to university and studied engineering, and competed and finished and at Portsmouth Uni, and thought, what am I going to do? Obviously I want to become the next world champion, the next Ed Senna or the next Bob Wallach or whoever it was, because my interest was in sport. So the racing was really progressing all in the right direction. It's lovely. What am I going to do to fill my time in and to earn some money? Still living with mum and dad, obviously. Most people go back to mum and dad, don't they, when they finish studying? And so I went up to Thruxton and had a good chat with Pat and Andrew and Bill, the guys that are still there. Saw them literally 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they gave me a job, and I started working sometime in July 96. So they have the race school there, but they also work with lots of different manufacturers. They have done over the years. Started doing some of the manufacturing work that they would do all over the guests would come along and drive the product range. Those in the pit lane, and used to work MG and Rover. Do you remember those guys?
Yeah.
BMW on track. They used to do 50, 60 days a year, BMW. But also Porsche came along. And then ultimately, Porsche took it in-house around about 2001, I would say. And about 10 of us, roughly, asked if we would like to carry on with Porsche work. just effectively invoicing Porsche direct, but Porsche were running it all themselves. So of course, it took me about a nanosecond to say yes, and and we just carried on. So I was still working at Thruxton, still working with lots of manufacturers, still racing, still working for Porsche. But the Porsche work is obviously, grown and grown and grown. And oh yeah, absolutely. And they took it in house, I guess, knowing what the future would bring, because they took it in house, as I say, 01, and of course 02, the KN came out, which just in terms of volume, pretty much doubled Porsche's volume within a couple of years, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we started doing lots of work around the country, and I guess around somewhere between 02 and 03, Porsche certainly became the primary work. Still working privately with other race drivers, coaching, still doing a little bit of work up at Thruxton and a number of other in little racing teams in track days and coaching people. But the primary focus was always from then on in, really. So yeah. And here we are, however many years later.
Yeah, I think my wife, she did some sort of day at Thruxton, and she came home and she said, "Yeah, there's a really nice guy there that I seem to remember." And you took her around Thruxton in I think it was it wasn't a Gallardo. It would have been a Mcloughlin, I think.
Mm.
So yeah. That was because obviously we knew each other from. Well, probably when you were still at uni, I think.
What? Yes.
Yeah, I shared a house with a mutual friend.
It's funny, isn't it?
It goes back a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah. So when was that? That was basically with Stephen, who I went to university with.
Yeah, that would have been 97. So
right, gosh. Oh my gosh, yeah, that is a long time ago.
Yeah.
So Stephen finished, and then went and rented a house with you after uni. So then I kept in touch, and I'm still very much in touch with Stephen. He was my best man at my wedding, and I was his, and so on. He's a good mate. And so I met you in the 90s, Andy.
Yeah, that's scary, isn't it? So you sort of joined Porsche then when really the KN was launched, which seems like when you look at KNs, that seems a long time ago as well, doesn't it? What did the KN feel like back then?
Amazing. Probably not the prettiest car on the outside. They've massively, obviously now it looks fantastic. Like a lot of good SUVs look great now, don't they? They look like large sports cars, and the KN very much just it looks like a large typical 911, you could say. But from some angles, I thought it looked fantastic, especially with the body kit on. But from other angles, it wasn't necessarily. But boy, did it drive well! And that's really what we were designed to show, how fantastic the engineering was and how capable the car was, which it certainly was. The E1, the first KN, was just amazing, and the capabilities that Porsche they're very known for racing, but a lot of people don't realise their rally background, and they have a huge amount of off-road experience, don't they? So they just sort of package that together in an SUV. And in fact, the guy that designed the first KN, he was very much involved with the second one as well, Stephen Merkitt. I met him a couple of times, once in Finland. I'm sort of slightly dropping the mic now, so it's almost name dropping. It was a driving experience that I had to go to in Finland. Yeah, he was there signing books. And he was a junior designer on the 959 rally car.
Oh, really?
He was more than a junior designer. He thought he would only get involved with designing a small part of it. I'm sort of quoting him now, but in the end, he was almost given, a huge amount of, not the whole car, but a huge volume of the car he designed. So really, he very much said the KN is a 959, but it, built into an SUV. So there was so much linking the two cars together, which was amazing, which is why it had phenomenal capability. Because we all know how good the 959 was off-road and on-road. So
well, the first generation ones have amazing off-road ability, don't they? Better than the later generation, I hear.
Yeah, by a very small amount. So what Porsche have realised is that the majority of our customers don't need a Paris-Dakar rally capable car. So they focused a touch more on the road / performance side, which means typically you'd lose a little bit of the off-road ability. So, you've lost 5% on one side and gained 5% on the other. But you're right. The E1, the first car, had low range box and all sorts of bits that you'd probably have associate with a Land Rover, a Defender, but it had all that sort of capability. A decouplable anti-roll bar, so you could get full articulation in the suspension. It was an amazing bit of kit. Still is, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, the new car.
A couple of years ago, I came across an early KN that was Trans-Siberian?
Oh yeah.
And that was quite an unusual beast. I mean, that was I think they did some quite serious off-roading with one of those. I think they did some long range stuff, and it was
they had their own rally.
Yeah, right. Okay.
The Trans-Siberian, they had their own rally, and one of our driving consultants, Neil, he was a really good. What type of rallying is that? The rally raiding, Paris-Dakar style rallying, and he has a massive background in that. So he actually drove the GB car alongside. Oh gosh, who was it? A well-known journalist, someone like Richard Needham, someone like that. With him, so he was the sort of works Porsche GB driver in that car, and then we had one on our fleet. Yeah, it was really fun. It was like a Group N spec KN.
Yeah, are they all black with orange highlights on them, aren't they?
Yeah, with spotlights on the roof and a snorkel and great car.
I think they've actually starting to increase in value. Those
early KNs. Yeah,
well, that particular model definitely. I don't know about the rest of the KN range. I think they're still, you can pick them up as bangers on Gumtree, can't you, unfortunately? But I tell you what, I've warmed to the Gen 1 KN. When it first came out, I was like, what the hell is that? But now you look back on it now and it's an amazing bit of kit, and I've actually warmed to the looks of it.
They stand out.
Yes, absolutely.
They do. Oh, they're a great car. They're one of our another driving consultants bought one about a year or two ago, an KNS for $3,000, I think.
Yeah.
What a great one owner, 80-something thousand miles. With a proper Porsche V8. Not much money. There's nothing wrong with it. Great car.
No, just going to cost you $20,000 to keep it each year. That's the only thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to know a bit more about the Experience Centre as well, because I mean that's lots of people talk about it. Some people go, some people don't. What does the Experience Centre? Maybe we should talk pre-COVID. I mean, what in terms of that as a sort of organised centre? What's the idea and what's the journey that people are meant to expect? Do you think when they go through the Experience Centre?
So we. The Royal We Porsche, they always had this grand idea to have their own facility, and that became real in 2008. So that gave us control over what we could do. We could build our own tracks, have our own facility, have a lovely restaurant there, a great, a building that feels like a Porsche Centre. So customers arrive and it feels familiar. And it's in a good location in Silverstone, in the centre of the country, pretty much. And obviously right next to a Grand Prix circuit that we dive on and off of a couple of times every month, really, on various events. So the idea is, every Porsche, the biggest volume of customers coming through any Porsche driving experience, are customers who buy new cars. That's something we've been running for years and years and years. Way before the Experience Centre opened, we used to go around the country and work from events, different locations. Sorry, mainly Millbrook. You've probably heard of Millbrook. Okay. We did a lot there, but we did move it around the country. But now the focus obviously is at Silverstone, and anyone who buys a new car gets a half a day driving experience with us at Silverstone in our car. Which obviously mirrors their car. If they buy a KN, they get to go in a KN and exactly the same derivative and so on. And if they're after particular options as well, if they're really interested in sports exhaust, rear axle steer, whatever, we'll have a car there. We've got 120 odd cars there. Wow. So we'll be able to match them up with the right car. And the idea is, so I mean, originally Porsche just wanted to, I think they felt the cars were getting faster and faster and faster. This was back in the sort of 996 Turbo and GT2 days. They really felt that they should offer a bit of training to their customers. And eventually that's filtered down to every car that we make. So it's a bit of, adding a bit of value to ask someone to come up and sort of invite someone to come up and have a lovely drive in one of our cars. But also it helps the customer, especially if they haven't spec'd the car yet. They may have been for a test drive. Yeah, they may have been for a test drive at the centre. And they know that they want a rear-wheel drive 911, let's say. but they're not quite sure of the spec and the options and so on. So they will always get invited automatically once they place their initial deposit. The invite gets out. So we will always say to them,
what a great idea. I always thought it was like you've taken delivery and then you get the experience. I didn't realize.
No, ideally,
that's really good. Okay.
Ideally, we'd love them to come up beforehand, especially if they're fairly new to Porsche. You know, if they buy the same set car every 6 months, which some of our customers do, then of course they know what they're getting. But and then for those customers coming before or after wouldn't make so much difference. They'll just come up and have a fun day. Ideally, customers who are really looking to hone down their options, they can come up, drive one of our cars for a really sort of 2.5 hours and really immerse themselves into that car with, and dare I say this, people, it makes no difference to them, us as driving consultants, whether they spec the car £1,000, whether they keep it completely basic. It makes no difference. It doesn't affect my income.
Yeah, you're not a salesman.
So I think customers sometimes just feel a little bit more relaxed with someone that you're not in that sort of salesy environment. And, you know, hopefully a Porsche Centre doesn't feel like that anyway too much. But, you know, they come up, they try the options, try the cars, have a really nice lunch or breakfast or afternoon tea, depending on which session they're going to do. Just have a lovely experience in Porsche and drive a car in a way that you can't on the road. And experience those options. All the cars are registered. We can go on the road. Many customers, I mean, every other customer wants to have a quick run around the lanes locally just to feel what it's like. Maybe try the PASM, try a few things on the road just to see, because there are some nice, smooth and bumpy roads around Silverstone. We can find some country lanes. And then we can come back and basically really see what it can do performance-wise on the track. And then hopefully they can go home and just have a really good think about those options. I mean, I can even print off the spec sheet for the car that they drove and hand that to them and say, look, this is what you drove. Have a think about it. And they can go back and sort of tick and cross which options they're interested in. And it should make that side of buying the Porsche a little bit easier for them.
Yeah.
So they can go back to the centre and make a more informed choice. But if they come afterwards, they can come up and have a great day and really learn what they can get out of their car.
Yeah, it's almost like you need 2 half-day sessions, isn't it? One to work out the car, and then one to actually enjoy the car.
Well, many people do. I mean, that's often that's the you know, the free course that customers come on. That's the biggest volume of our customers through the door. But a lot of our customers ask, what more can I do? Yeah. We do offer many courses. You can buy the shortest course is 90 minutes, so sort of a quarter of a day. You can buy a half day, you can buy a full day, you can buy 2 days, you can buy 3-day programs. So the full day programs, 1, 2, or 3, we also have a session on the big track. So Silverstone, whichever track they give us, it's normally the Grand Prix circuit, sometimes the Southern Loop, the international circuit, which is still 2/3 of the Grand Prix circuit. It's absolutely brilliant. And obviously that just allows you to stretch the car a little further, and also just a big tick in the box. I've driven around Silverstone, you know, the same corner that Hamilton's just driven around, or whoever. So you know, it's a lovely track, isn't it? The circuit is brilliant. So there's a lot of customers who want to do more. They really and you can choose any car, anything. Depending on your age, you have to be over 25 to drive the really fast. But we've got a 4-litre RS, we've got the latest GT2 RSs, we've literally got the whole range. So it's really interesting. And some of the cars, I mean, we've got a Gen 1 997, GT3 RS. Yeah, we've got the 4-litre there as well. We've got the 997 4-litre. We've got all the new stuff. We've got an 80s car, got a G series car.
So can you book a G series car to an experience in? Is that on the fleet?
Yep.
Wow.
We've got an 80, it's a B reg. What does that make it? 83, 84?
84, yeah.
Yeah. It's a really nice 3.2, standard 3.2. It's just really nice, fun. It moves about a lot compared to the new stuff, but it's fun.
Yeah.
We've got a 993 as well. We've got an early 93, actually, 993.
Yeah, really.
And very early, just a standard Carrera, which is also lovely to drive. And we've got other cars. We've got a few customers who are really on the cusp. In fact, no, a few have gone into racing. And we've got a few on the cusp of, you know, they've got a race license, but they're just dipping their toe in the water. So I think we've run 1 or 2 courses, but then with COVID getting in the way, we didn't do many. We've got a GT4 Club Sport race car.
Oh, wow.
So we've got Road to Race. So that's a 2-day course where you can come and drive on day 1 a current road car, GT4. and then you migrate to the race car on Silverstone. So we're going to be looking to run a few more of those courses. There's 4 or 5 of us, myself included, who are going to be part of the team delivering that training. So yeah, there's lots of different reasons why you might come to the Experience Centre. And that's customers, let alone press, let alone training, internal staff training. There's lots of reasons.
So if you touched on staff training there, do all the sales staff in an OPC sat around the country, do they get dragged through there, and do they get taken around the track by someone like yourself? And in terms from a product point of view, have they already sat in the seat of most of the cars that they're doing the sales bit for?
Yes, ideally. So obviously the last year or two we haven't been able to do that, but yes, they do come up for a training course up to Silverstone. And again, it's just the ideal place because we're off the road, we've got all the cars. So they come and drive mid-engined, front engine, mid-engine, rear engine. They drive the range.
Yeah.
They'll drive a couple of 911s. They typically drive a Boxster and a Kn, and both SUVs. Obviously the Taycan had only just come out when we started to close down, so that will be included now as well. So they tick all the main boxes when you look at all the technology, different gearboxes, different engine setups and layouts and chassis and so on. And they experience that over a day. The first day they come up and learn about the brand, the heritage and the history of Porsche, and they really, immerse themselves in the Porsche world in a familiar environment in the Porsche Experience Centre, which feels very much like their centre that they work at. So they do come out. So that's their initial. That's within, I think, the first 3 or 4 months of working at a Porsche GB. They'll come on that course, and then going forwards, we have ongoing training depending on whether you're sales, after sales, tech. You'll go on all sorts of training courses, and a number of those are run at the Experience Centre. Okay. But sometimes we go abroad and we do different things as well, especially when there's a Central European launch of a new product. For example, Porsche have been running those in Mallorca since the Mcloughlin came out. Actually, we've been flying down there once a year to catch a bit of sun.
Sure.
No, it's tough. So we take all the sales and off-sales guys down there for 2 or 3 days of training, and we have about 12 or 13 waves of 40 or 50 people coming, and we deliver training non-stop. Yeah, so they get technical training, driver training on the road. There's a lovely track there as well, and it's just a lovely environment. It's very central for Europe, so it's a great place to go.
Yeah.
So, but the majority of what I do, of course, is in the UK. So yeah, the guys and girls in the network, they do get to experience a lot of training. Porsche are really good at training and keeping them up to date, and some of that is driver training. So yeah, they come and have some fun in our cars.
And with the product side of things, obviously, the thing with Porsche, isn't it, is that there's so many options, so many varieties, and across the whole range. Do you get involved in the product training side of things with those guys and girls? Because that must be quite a feat to kind of learn all the kit before you even start.
It is. it was. So I do. Yeah, I'm definitely one of the external product trainers. So there's a team of 4 at Porsche Cars, Great Britain, headed up by David Willis, and he's the commercial training manager. And then there's Peter, Charlotte, and James, who are full time delivering all that training. But of course, Porsche's. It's growing, and there's need for extra resource. So there are a number of us, 5 or 6 of us external trainers, who will come in and help deliver that product training. And with my background, I tend to get involved with all the technical side of things. So, when we're launching a new product, there are various different modules that the guys will go through. So there'll be a marketing section, there'll be a equipment exclusive training session, maybe. There'll probably be a bit of brand training, but then there's normally a technical training session. I often deliver that. So I'll get into the nitty gritty of, what's changed on the engine, the motors, the chassis, those bits, the bits that make them go and stop and turn. So I tend to deliver that session, and sometimes it's 2 of us delivering. It's normally a sort of hour and a half, 2-hour session. We'll have 4 of those typically in a day. And yes, sales and after sales do specifically come through that. Technical training are often off to one side. They come through it, but from a different angle as such. They need to get really into the technical side even more so, and because of parts and put them back together, which I so we deliver that as well, which is great. And so I have my train the trainer before I then deliver the training to the guys in the network. So I get taught about it. We get the.
Do you have to go to Germany for that?
Sometimes I was just thinking. Sometimes they'll come.
Probably not lately, but
not lately. No.
Yeah, but I guess that'll be starting again at some point.
We've had some virtually, of course, to keep up to date.
Yeah.
And then we've had some internal training that we've done for ourselves, which is a lot of reading, of course. And someone will read up in one area, then train the rest of us. And then I'll read up in one area and then deliver that back to them. So we've done that kind of thing. Yeah. And but yeah, Germany have been doing every year. They'll always have a train the trainer, TTT, before the main train, a month or so before the main training, and they will update us with everything that you don't read about in the press, for example, just all the extra little nuggets of information which is worth telling our staff. And then we'll go back and deliver our own training for 2 or 3 weeks, however long it takes. So last when with like I say, the first one I worked on was the KN as a trainer, as a technical trainer, a product trainer, let's say. So every year or two there has been something that's had a facelift or a brand new car has come out. So it's been ongoing, alongside all the regular training that we do every month. So that's sort of a side job. The bulk of what I do is in car, but the training goes alongside that. Although to be fair, as the brand is the number of offerings has increased, the product range has increased, the training has increased as well. So it might be closer to sort of 60-40 maybe now. I'm not sure, but it's good. It's great. It's a lovely brand to work for, and long may that continue. They do make some nice cars.
Going to get your watch at 25 years soon.
Yeah.
What do you get? I don't know. The little Casio on at the moment. So it'd be nice to get something. They do make some nice watches, don't they?
They do, yeah. I think you've earned it.
Actually, at the last, sorry to talk about watches, at the Icon training, Porsche were just at the same time they were just launching that new range of watches. And we had to, all the trainers had to wear a watch for the 3 weeks that we were out there. So the watch they gave me was worth £10,000. And I had to sign a disclaimer, I wouldn't lose it. I put it in my safe every night in the hotel room. And I wouldn't go out wearing it. I could only wear it at the facility we were working and all these sorts of things. So, I had this amazing watch I was so worried about for 3 weeks. And it was amazing. So, I had to hand it back, unfortunately. But, yes, I scratched my name on the back. So hopefully they'll give me that one in a few years' time.
Excellent.
Oh, Lee's in the room.
Yeah, Lee's joined us. Hello, Lee.
Hello. What a time to join the conversation when Ben's talking about wearing a 10 grand watch. So the PEC must be doing all right for you then, I take it, Ben.
That was a loaner from Germany. I had to go back.
What a shame. Ben, I'm really, obviously to everyone as well, I'm really sorry. I hope no discourtesy intended there whatsoever. It's been a long one. So but yes, thank you for coming along today and having a chat. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. We've talked about it for so many years, probably, haven't we? So quite. It seems like so many years with COVID in the way. We talked about it a lot. But finally, we're here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you on. So anyway, as you were, gents.
Right, I want to know, Ben, have you owned any Porsches and what have they been?
Yes, 3. So my first two Porsches were both 944s. And I bought them both from Porsche Centre, Bournemouth. And the first one was a very early, it was a B or a C. No, it was a B. That was right. B. So the same age as that old 911 we were just talking about a moment ago. So it was a red 2.5. It was a red 2.5 Lux, which back in those days, Porsche Centre Bournemouth was still owned by Brian Deeks, and he owned it for many years before he would to retire. Sort of. He's still dabbling away, isn't he, doing different things? But known Brian for many years, of course. And I used to run, before we built the Experience Centre and before the driving experience grew to where we are now, 1 week a month, about 6 of us covered the country going, I would look after 5 Porsche centres in the south. Yeah. And I'd spend 1 day at each Porsche centre for a week. I spent 1 day every month at Porsche Centre Bournemouth, and I'd go off and look after the Dick Lovett centres and where else? Reading, that was right. And I'd always, so every month I'd wander into Porsche Centre Bournemouth. What I would do is I would take custom test drives on the road. And I would do lots of test drives, which would then help to keep all the sales guys at the centre, and they wouldn't be out all the day, and they'd have time to chat to customers and sit down with them rather than having to do the next test drive the next day. I would do all the test drives. So, which was fun, but I'd always get there nice and early and walk into the sales meeting and they'd all go, "Oh, Ben's here. Yep. Oh, you've got this person, have a look at the sheet on the wall and what have you." And Brian was always there. And I'd always walk in as I knew them well. I'd say, "Anything come in recently for me? Anything, any trade-ins? I'm interested, anything." And normally they didn't get, the £2,500 944. They wouldn't normally come through the door. But then this car came in, and it was a one owner, originally supplied, as was the second 944 I bought as well, from Porsche Centre Bournemouth. And Brian rang me up randomly one week, and he said, I said, "Oh, hi, Brian. How are you?" He said, "Yeah, very well. Your car's just arrived."
Excellent.
I absolutely remember him saying that. And I said, I was a bit, "What do you mean?" Anyway, yeah, so there it was. And it was perfect. And I ran that for 2 and a bit years. Sorry. And then that had to go because a child arrived. And then another child arrived, and I had to go through various Volkswagens and Audis, which were perfectly fine. But and then do you remember Nick Ray? He used to work at Porsche Centre Bournemouth as well. He was there for years. He rang me up and said, "I've got another 944 that's being traded in. Would you like it?" I said, "Oh, is it nice?" He said, "It's a one owner, full history, Bournemouth car, 80,000 miles, I think it was, 90,000, something like that."
It wasn't the same car that come back round.
No, it wasn't. It was a different car. Yeah, it was very similar. It was an F registered 2.7 Lux. And this chap had owned it. When I say it was one owner, it was their demonstrator. And then he bought it, and he owned it all those years. And he was retiring, and he was buying himself a little present. He was buying himself a Cayman. So I bought it, and what a great car for, I think, around about £1,900. And I ran that for three and a bit years, sold that on to someone. Oh, one of the driving consultants. Yeah, Mark still got it. So he bought it from me. And then I replaced that with a Boxster 2.7 986 Gen 2. And that was mine. And I kept that 3.5 years. I'm dragging this out, sorry. And because I don't have one. I sold it just before COVID arrived. And
really?
And I sold it to another colleague, Jürgen, who loves it, and he'd always ask me, "Whenever you want to sell that car, let me know." So I just thought, I sort of scratched that itch, and I thought, I'll try something else.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a Cayman actually, and then COVID arrived, and I'm still trundling around in my very, very old Touran, Volkswagen Touran, which we've been going for about 12 years, I think. So I'm without a Porsche for the first time in ages. So yeah.
So are you loosely shopping? Are you? Is it the one?
Well, I need to earn a little bit more money. COVID has been, we're all self-employed, so we need to get ourselves back standing straight and a little stronger. Yeah. But once we've done that in the next couple of years or so, I absolutely will own hopefully many more Porsches. But yeah, I will buy. I don't know what to get. I'm quite interested in buying something. I do like the top downs, maybe just a slightly newer Box 987 Boxster. Yeah. Maybe is what I'm looking at. As a few of the driving consultants who have got those. But like I say, Cayman, a tracked up Cayman sounds nice.
It's funny, isn't it? I'm noticing not like an anti-911 thing, but like you like to go off the beaten track, I think it's fair to say, with regards to Porsche and whatnot, which is interesting. Where are you at, Ben, with like the Transaxle cars? Because to be fair, we don't talk about them enough on this podcast, really. They have their merit without a doubt. And obviously they've had a uptick in values over the past couple of years, providing you can find a good one. So, talk to us in praise of the Transaxle cars.
They're the two that I owned were absolutely brilliant. They were well looked after cars, but they were my everyday cars. They were old cars, right? And they were my everyday cars. I don't have enough garage space or driveway space or money. We have a Volkswagen Charan modern car with the sliding doors. I've got 3 children. That's perfect. It ticks that box. So for me, I could almost have a 1-seater. It doesn't really matter because I'm just always on my own in the car. So these, Boxsters and 944s and stuff like that, I have to run it as my everyday car, and it didn't miss a beat once. All 3 cars were absolutely perfect.
Cracking.
And yeah, absolutely, just regular servicing. Bought the right one that has got a full history and looks right and drives right. Generally, I'd say generally can't go wrong. They're really well built. I think sometimes people think those Transaxle cars weren't as good as the 911, for example. They are. They really, really are. Especially, I'd say 944 onwards. 944 is a mini 928 basically. The engine is half the V8. It's got loads of proper. It's just a really well engineered car. Very comfortable. And a great, it's a mini GT car, so it's a very comfortable cruising car and something that you wouldn't have to spend a huge amount of money on if you really wanted to throw it around the tracks and have some fun. And obviously 968, I was looking at a 968 about 10 years ago, but they've now shot up in value.
Haven't they? Yeah.
So they're sort of way out my price range now, but especially the good ones. When we opened the Experience Centre, sort of 08, I was looking at a really nice estate Sport. I think it was about 8,000, 7,000.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't get you wouldn't even get a barn fine for that, would you? But they're fantastic. Beautifully balanced 50-50 weight distribution. The engine and the gearbox and differential and everything. At the back, and such a well balanced car. I did drive the second 944 I had. I drove it around the tracks at Silverstone, and it's not massively quick, 165 I think it was horsepower, my 2.7, but not very heavy, light, nimble, very responsive, great car, really, really good. And then they had their 40th anniversary a few years ago, and we did a big driving experience at Silverstone, and we had them nose to tail all the way around the track more than once, so there were hundreds of cars there.
Wow, awesome.
And someone drove me around in a turbocharged 924, but he had turbocharged and had about 400 horsepower. And I'm not joking, it was all tricked up, and it was a brilliant car. It was, they're really, really good. I think people always look at the traditional Porsches, let's say the 911s and maybe famous from before, but there are so many other cars to think about as well. And those Transaxle years were great cars. They were great years.
I think just looking historically, Porsche built those cars ultimately, particularly with regards to the 928 and whatnot, to replace the 911. And if Porsche are building these cars to replace the 911, that is a car that needs to be taken seriously. I think as well, wasn't it car of the year at one, the 928 when it first came out was car of the year? I might be butchering that slightly.
968 was.
Oh, okay. See, that's where I'm light on knowledge on Transaxle cars, but again, it proves the point because among its rivals at the time was the 911. So
that's right.
If Porsche as a manufacturer taking them seriously, we should too.
Yeah, and it did mothball the 911 for about 6 months, didn't it? They stopped the production until obviously everyone in the world who knows everything about Porsche and loves 911s, they went, hold on a minute.
Yeah, until
you can't do that.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Allegedly until Peter Schutz walked in with his pen and extended the 911 production line round the corner and off the wall and round the corner. But and
look at it now.
Well, and this is it. And I think we're real champions on this podcast of, we don't necessarily chase the latest and greatest thing and big horsepower and fancy wings and stuff. We just like a good, usable, tractable car with excellent power to weight and a car that's great fun behind the wheel. And it's definitely worth looking at this in a future podcast, I think, and really focus on the Transaxle cars because they actually tick a lot of the boxes that we like to represent.
Yeah. I think a lot of those Transaxle cars have tipped that balance to being sort of, they're not quite classic as such, but they're kind of retro cool. I think they're sort of, you see them and you go, oh, that's a good looking old cool car, and not necessarily in the classic kind of category, but they're not sort of old and a bit. Yeah, it's not like the poor man's alternative. If you know what I mean? It's a considered choice, I think.
Yeah, very much. I think it may have been that sort of poor man's alternative back in the day. It got that tag a bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
Even Boxers got that a little bit, didn't they? In the early Boxers, the one that I had. But
they've shaken that off now, haven't they?
Yeah, the people have got over that now. And I think they see them for what they are, which is really good on its well built as all the 911s were and over the years and everything else. But yet affordable. at the end of the day. So yeah, but they are climbing, aren't they? So if you want one, go and get one.
Yeah. Shall we? Maybe if we delay publishing the podcast for a couple of weeks, just give us a text when you've got one on side. We can go from there. So
I'll tell you what, I think early Boxster though, same category. I've started thinking quite fancy an early Boxster. That'd be great fun.
Big time.
Yeah, it's interesting how suddenly cars catch your eye again after you sort of discount them. It's,
They've become retro, as you say.
Definitely.
We spoke a couple of weeks ago. There was on a WhatsApp group, a 986 Boxster with that nephrite green interior went up, silver Boxster with that. I mean, 2 years ago, that would have just been a bag of sick for most people. But now people are going, somehow,
I'll have that tomorrow.
Somehow that looks absolutely awesome. Yeah, it's just like it's weird. We just COVID's done some crazy things to people. crazy.
What's the orangey brown where it's sort of they put it everywhere?
Savannah.
Is it Savannah that's really orangey brown, and it's like you get occasionally you see one where they covered everything in leather, and it's just like the dash, it's all matching. It's just dripping in like this brown. I don't know how you describe it. Sort of diarrhea brown. It
reminds me of like and I'm from Essex. I feel like I'm allowed to say this, but I feel like it's like indicative of a colour of people that walk out of the tanning salons.
Absolutely. Essex tan brown.
That reminds me of one of our driving experience 986 Boxster S's, which was a guards red with that Savannah interior, but it had the bucket seats. Okay. So it was a bucket seat car, Savannah with guards red. I only really remember that because I had it home for a weekend en route to another driving experience somewhere else. So we occasionally would take them home. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, we had a picture taken with us in the car. We have it on display. We have it in the downstairs toilet. So I see that every time I go in there, I see that car.
Is that pride of place? Is that all it made it into the toilet? Was that all
yeah, the old stuff stays in the toilet.
I apologies if you've already spoken about this, but just kind of going back to the PEC and whatnot, because I've been lucky enough to kind of get up there the past few years and got to know some great guys there, yourself included, Ben, Mark Birkinshaw, Gordy, of course, Rob Colborne, Barry Horn back in the day, obviously, ex-Carrera Cup winner, the first Carrera Cup winner in the UK. Some fantastic people there. And I feel like the public might not quite know and understand that the lengths that you guys up there go to deliver a properly awesome experience for people. There's some really talented people there. Some of you stay like locally during the week and then pop back at weekends and stuff. Like, it's a huge effort to make what is an astounding facility and delivers a brilliant experience for people. I know as well, you have some of like the advanced driving people there like yourself, and then you have like ex-police. And what I find is quite funny in having been out with kind of a few of either is on the handling course, the old handling course, depending on whether it's an advanced driving instructor or a police ex-cop, there's a different line on the way round. I know you're going to say here and now, the police line's wrong, isn't it? But
oh no, I couldn't possibly say that.
I feel like this debate's been had before.
It's quite funny.
There will probably be a number who may listen to this in due course, but no, there's a really fantastic mix of driving ability and background. Let's say, up there as we do come from all over. You mentioned Gordon there, our chief driving consultant. He lived up in Doon in Scotland and comes down every week. And there's 4 or 5 in Scotland, Wales. We come from. In fact, living in Winchester, I'm one of the closer ones.
Yeah.
And I'm 80 odd miles away, so we come from all over. And I think facilities like that attract, good facilities attract the right people. So people are prepared to travel, and Porsche are happy to employ those people and give them a bit of leeway in terms of travel and moving cars around and timings and things, because we want the right people to work for us. It's a really good team that has there's a lot of people that have worked there for as long as I have, let's put it that way. And we've got some new fresh blood coming in as well. That's great. Some of the guys will eventually retire who are a bit older than me, so we need to attract some more people through. But it is a really a great mix. Everyone does have a really good high performance driving background. You say some are more road focused and from their background, but all of those guys have a very high performance track sort of background. Some of them have raced. Quite a few of the police have raced bikes and cars. I'm thinking of 2 or 3 in my head right now. Some of them haven't raced. Race just means that you've been lucky enough to find a race seat, doesn't it? It just means you've been able to get some money together. But there are so many fantastic coaches and instructors that I know. They haven't had the opportunity to race much. They're very, very good coaches and very good drivers. Yeah. So they know how to sit next to someone and critique and look at what they're doing and help them improve. The racing bit's just the kind of final cherry on the cake if you've been lucky enough to do a bit of racing. But like I say, the vast majority of us have got that background anyway, whether they come from the road or from traditional from the track. Yeah. And from karting and so on. So it's a real mix, isn't it? And it's a good different bag, really. You never quite know who you're going to be.
100%, which is great because and we've had Rob Colborne on the podcast before, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, but I spoke to Rob yesterday.
Yeah, we've discussed then that driving is, or your driving skills, your repertoire there for you as a person. It's like a toolbox, and you use different tools for different kind of parts, and that's why. I think it's good actually that there is variety at the Experience Centre, because where people show you different things, well, actually that might suit you perhaps more than something else that might better suit someone else. So it's a real good thing that there's a mix there,
Yeah, and the vast majority of our customers who come along, they're not looking for a track day. They're not looking for someone who's going to sit next to them and just push them on to their maximum and maybe spin or feel uncomfortable. As I said before you arrived, Lee, the vast majority of our customers are coming because they bought a car and they're coming to have a look at the options, and they're coming to just have a little drive around away from the road, so they don't have to worry about oncoming traffic and I don't know, someone pulling out from a D-junction, that kind of, and speed limits. They just relax and drive the car. When we're not driving the car close to its door handles or anything like that at all, we're just pottering around, but naturally you'll find people will obviously start to drive a bit quicker, and then after a while you then can start to sort of get into it a little bit more. But for most people, they're not there to smash the car around the track as fast as possible. We have, as I've already mentioned, we've got days where people can progress to really starting to get into understanding how to drive a car better and faster. But the vast majority are there to just drive around and learn about the car. So who they have sat next to them, you don't need a retired F1 driver to be sat next to you to do that kind of thing, because we're not there to just push you. We're there to help you understand the product, and you'll always learn something, won't you? It's different because we all deliver our coaching and so on ever so slightly differently. We're roughly talking about the same things, of course, because there's a good line and a bad line through the corner, but and of course we all need to brake and slow the car down and turn it in. So there are sort of set ways that you do that. What am I trying to say? Yeah, there's lots of different interesting people up there, which as you say, you've been out with plenty often, Lee. So
that's the thing as well. It's and I know you guys have touched on it previously, whereby when you buy a new car, you get your complimentary half a day at Silverstone or the PEC. That's absolutely fantastic, but that doesn't need to be the one and only time you go to that facility. It really is a place you can go kind of back again and again and again. I'm not being paid to say this, by the way. This is just genuine.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I've been very lucky to be up there quite a lot, and genuinely, I've come away every single time having learned something that has always enhanced my driving. Yeah. And that is fantastic. And that's beside the point of, I know you've obviously, your different, I don't know if courses is the right word, but you can do like the 911 Evolution, the GT Evolution with the 997 GT2 RS pre-prod that sits up there. I mean,
that's right.
It's, it's probably the only 997 GT2 RS that gets driven every week on the planet.
That's it.
You know, so like there's plenty you can do up there. But aside from the experience of getting to drive all these fantastic cars, you always come away having learned something about your own driving. And that is massive. You can never have too much tuition.
Yeah, you never stop learning. You never stop learning. I've met some amazing people working in this industry. People, I'm thinking of, Richard Atwood, who turned 81 recently, and he's saying that to me all the time. We did a little race a couple of years ago together, and we were just talking about what line are you taking, what gears are you doing, how hard are you, just the usual things you talk about as a driver. How do you get through that corner? And you never stop learning. A couple of corners he would fart, a couple of corners I would fart. You never stop learning, and that's someone who's done everything, right?
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough to work with all sorts of amazing, with Derek Bell, all sorts of, through Porsche, all these wonderful people, and they all say the same. All those guys, the really good ones, they all say the same. You never stop learning.
Never stop learning. Yeah, tuition's so key, isn't it, to making you a better driver? Definitely. I mean, there's more to be learnt from your skill than there is to modifying the car to make it quicker.
Oh God, yeah.
and your skill is transferable, whether it's the modification
That's
on
true.
the car. You've nailed your flag to the mask there.
Absolutely.
Again,
we sound like a bunch of salesmen for get out there and learn.
So those modifications don't always work.
No, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. Now, obviously, things must be reopening soon because you've basically not been working for a while.
No.
What's the the last year? I guess you've been not kicking your heels, but you've had time in that over that time where you've not been working. When's it all kick back off?
So the Experience Centre is opening next Monday, the 17th of May. Hey. So that's the next major date that we all know about, isn't it? So it is opening again. And it opened in a way that we opened last summer. So we were open a little bit in July, pretty much fully open August, September, October, and then obviously lockdown 2 arriving in, didn't it? Was it November? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. So we had to run in a COVID specific way. So we're not in car with customers. Everyone's all doing all the normal social distancing and washing hands and all those things that everyone is doing. And so fantastically. So we've been running in that way. So on track, it's ducks and drakes. So there's an instructor one-to-one with that customer, as always. But we are in a car ahead of the customer, so ducks and drakes. So the customer is following the driving consultant. So I've got 2 radios in the car rather than 1. So I've got one to speak to everyone, and I've got one to only speak to my chap behind me or my lady behind me. So they're following us, and we are constantly chatting to them, constantly getting out of the car and talking about what we're looking to achieve and what bit of technology we're looking at, etc. So everyone has really, really enjoyed that. It has gone really well. We were all a little nervous when we sort of opened up last year with that, and we knew it would be okay, but we weren't quite sure that how good, I guess, until you try things. It worked really well, and customers have really, really liked it. So thankfully, well done to Porsche, big tick in the box, and all the guys who planned it at the Experience Centre and beyond. They did a really, really good job. So it's worked really well. We've got a lot of customers that we need to invite back up. Of course, we couldn't run at our normal volume, so the backlog is built and built and built, and of course, whilst we've been closed, it's built up every day as Porsche. They carried on selling cars. So we've got customers who need to come up and want to come up lots. So we open again, May the 17th.
So you're going to be bloody busy, aren't you? For a long time.
Well, June the 21st, isn't it? The next day. That's when I know that we can kind of go back. Probably, let's say July, because I've had an email saying July. We fingers crossed, everything should go back to normal. So
you can start hugging customers again. Is that what you do?
I think everyone will want to hug each other, no matter what, even if you've never met before. Give me a hug.
Great lap, well done.
So, keep your hands on the wheel. So we have a lots of lovely customers who want to come up. We will be opening very, very shortly, and everyone's very excited. So we will, without doubt, be busy. Looking forward to it. It's been a lean year for all of us, but that's just our industry. Our driving industry stopped pretty much. So here we are, and raring to go.
Ben, I know you were saying things have changed, and obviously you can't be in the car with people when they're out. And again, like say using the handling circuit as an example, you're in a car behind, aren't you? And kind of dictating that way. Is that right? Or back at base, but
in front.
Okay, fine. So you're watching back, but you can still kind of point people by in terms of like lines and stuff through around the track, isn't it? And actually, I think for some people as well, they might that scenario might take a bit of pressure off them as a driver, rather than being very conscious you've got a highly skilled pro sitting next to you that's quite literally judging you in everything you do, and then critiquing you and pulling you off and all the bad. It is, it's quite a daunting sort of thing. Obviously Richard Atwood's got his little book as well, where he writes a little sentence about everyone that he's been out with. But that might help just kind of,
Yes, I do 100% hear what you're saying, and I think for some people maybe I'd like to think that we all are nice, approachable people, and that we do put people at ease. When we're sat in the car, I'm not here to judge, I'm not here to mark someone necessarily, but most people are quite comfortable at learning and being coached a little bit. Certainly after an hour or two, once you've got to know them and you've just had a bit of fun, then you can start to get into it a little bit. I'll often ask, would you like me just to help here a little bit? What about this bit? What about it? And then they buy into what you're trying to help them with.
Yeah.
But for some people, maybe it did. I know a couple last year. Nigel, a customer I've looked after for years and years. He's got all sorts of lovely cars. Does a lot of track days and with us. And he's got a GT3 RS. He's got a 4-litre. And he came and did a full day, and we were on the big tracks as well, Silverstone tracks. And he really felt, he's very level-headed. He's not hot-headed at all. He's very calm. He's quick, really quick. But he really felt more pressure.
Okay.
Yeah, because he didn't have me fine-tuning, because he's within a few seconds of the pace.
Yeah.
So he needs that little bit of fine-tuning once in a while. He does the bulk of it right, but sometimes I'll just say a bit more brake, a bit more, and then turn, or whatever it might be. And obviously he didn't have that little safety net sat next to him.
Yeah.
So that safety net was in a car in front of him that he was chasing. So that's up to me to judge that pace and just lead him up to the pace that I'm comfortable with him driving to. But he really enjoyed that pressure. Don't get me wrong, he really enjoyed it, but thought to himself, wow, this I need to up my game here. So it was really interesting. But obviously ideally we'd sit next to all our customers, because we need to offer that level of experience for them. So ideally that's the best way of doing things, not just from a safety point of view, but you can talk about if I'm going to talk about a bit of technology on the car and really get into it whilst they're driving around and better understand that, when I press this button, how does it make the car feel? Kind of need to be in the car with them to really, it's just the icing on the cake if you can sit in the car with them. So we're very happy that we are probably looking very, very likely to be able to do that very soon.
Awesome.
So no, it should be good.
Yeah. And Ben, I'd like to see whether you will dish any dirt. So having spent
here comes
20 plus years sat next to people in high performance Porsches, you must have some stories to tell. I mean, you must have a few sort of test pilots turn up who think they know far more than you do, and try and show you how to drive. So there must be a few that stick out as being good ones for you.
Oh no! Let me try and decide which ones not to tell.
There was this guy called Lee that.
Well, I was just about to say there was this young journalist that turned up once. He now owns a really lovely 911, but he drove it like no. Yes, there are a few that I could. I'm not going to mention any names, of course.
No, of course.
But there are a few interesting. I've had a few people who, certainly a couple of well-known drivers who are, well, what are you going to teach me? Kind of attitude.
Wow. Okay.
As I was sort of saying earlier, you might be very lucky and you've done lots of racing and you've got very high up, let's say, whatever the rating might be, because you've been bankrolled all the way to the top. We all know motor racing costs quite a lot of money, so you've got to have that. But when you get there, you fall back down again very quickly if you can't really do the do. And some of these people that have been able to buy their way into good teams with the best kit, and they've got some fairly decent results over the years, but they're not great drivers. Oh my gosh, some of them that I've sat next to, and I've had. I can think of one in particular. He did look. This was a few years ago, and I did look a little bit younger than I do now. I know Andy mentioned that I looked about 12 earlier, but I'm 47 years old. I'll have you know. But this was when I was maybe in my 20s, maybe 30s. Maybe I don't know what. did quite a bit of racing by that point. I've won a few races in British GTs and all sorts. And he sort of looked me up and down. What on earth do you think you can help me with today? And I thought, well,
whippersnapper.
I hadn't even sat in the car. Well, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Let's go and have a drive, shall we? And see, And there was always, you never stop learning, do you? So there's always something. Obviously, I'm very diplomatic, and I always make sure that my customers, whoever they might be, have had a good time and they don't go away disappointed. But there have been a few, and you get the odd customer who has driven everything, and they'll turn up at Porsche and think they know everything as well. But it's been, but the vast majority are absolutely brilliant.
Have you had any big offs? I feel like you're avoiding the subject here.
It's been very diplomatic.
I have not had. What do you call a big off?
Well, has anyone put one on the roof? Has anyone wrote one off? Is any ever got that bad?
Yeah.
He squirmed.
Yeah, amazing.
It wasn't on its roof, but it was rebuilt. Put a damp patch in an RS, and off we went.
Oh.
And Barry Horn, you mentioned Barry earlier. Barry had just come past us in a 911 Turbo and with his customer driving, and drove through the corner faster than us and out the other side. And unfortunately, we just caught this little damp patch at the apex, and it went this way, and then it went that way, and then it went this way, and then eventually it went that way, and clattered into the back. That's the one that we weren't getting away from that. Unfortunately, just slightly different line. I think egged on by the car ahead as well. Just went a bit wide, caught a patch. A different line, ever so slightly different line to every time we've been through that corner, and that's the only time that's ever happened. I've had a couple of spins. You always get a few of those, but it's our job to really make sure that we are on the right side of that safety line. But I think over many years that I've been working in this industry, unfortunately, one will probably catch you out, and that was the one I can think of. At the PEC, we've had more people reverse into the building, and I've witnessed one car drive nose in. I mean, we've had more people do little dinks like that than we have any, major fireballing rolls into the fields. We haven't had anything major like that.
To be honest, Ben, as well, I would also argue that if there's ever providing all the occupants, it sounds like you were involved with that. So providing everybody's okay, if there is an environment in which that is to happen, that is the very best place you can be, because even if at the point you're going off, you could still be there, providing you're, obviously not screaming, and whatever, but, you can at least say, no, Christ, whatever you do, like don't lift, for example, whether say someone's on a motorway, they go through, or, back end steps out and someone completely panics, bit of opposite lock, and then like say it will snap round, go the other way, and they create even more of a problem rather than a tank slapper or whatever it is.
I'll chase it to the end.
And that's the point as well, because that whole facility, particularly with, we talk about 911s and the odd weight distribution and stuff. I mean, when journalists first get into the industry, Porsche sends you up there because it's like, well, if you're going to drive the cars, you have to know how they drive. And again, that's exactly where, the merit of that facility comes into for everybody. That's the place to learn how these things happen. It's therefore inevitable that sometimes, a wheel might go over the line, metaphorically and physically speaking, but it's better there surely than elsewhere.
Yep.
Have you ever had to grab the steering wheel or the handbrake?
Yes. You grab the steering wheel, probably not grab, but gently tease it in whichever direction you wanted to go. Probably most days, just a little suggestive. You could be a little bit tighter here, a little bit. I was going to say once a week, maybe not once a week, probably once a month. You do have to do we need to do this, or we need to do that. Obviously, nowadays there are no handbrakes to grab.
Oh yeah, true.
There are no hand brakes anymore. They're gone.
So you just see them spinning in your rearview mirror now. Is that what happens?
Luckily, no. We make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so. You're rightly. It's a great place to make a mistake. Let's say you've got someone next to you that can explain that. I squirmed because there was one incident I can think of, and that's. You've had the odd spin in the wet, and obviously we've got the slippy bits that you skid and slide around on all the time anyway. You're going to spin there.
Yeah.
It's very rare that we ever have an incident. It's very, very rare. Whereas if you go to do a track day, there are lots of wonderful track day companies out there, but typically they'd have a couple of cars in the gravel, maybe one dink into the barriers. Most track days, there'll probably be someone that would just damage it very slightly. We rarely, I mean, 1 or 2 a year, not even that.
Wow.
And then they're normally, as I say, someone reversing into a lamppost. It's so rare because everything is controlled and delivered correctly. So it's a wonderful place. And Porsche, wherever we are, whether we are there or working at Millbrook or working abroad, whatever we might be, everything is controlled at a very high level of so customers come along safe in the knowledge that we're going to really look after them through that day, and we're not just going to sort of sit next to them and say, yeah, crack on, go as fast as you can. We're going to deliver a really professional coaching day, let's say, and hopefully by the end of it they will be much faster and much safer. And that's if you're going to win a race, you've got to get to the flag, right? So you don't, top race drivers don't crash all the time. They hardly ever crash. They hardly ever crash, do they? They might run a little wide occasionally, but they hardly ever crash. There's very few that do that. But so that's our aim, not to have any things.
What's the because where you're talking about like nudges on the steering wheel, which can be helpful on the handling circuit, as you're going round clockwise, obviously, and then you can do a left for the kick plate. Or it's essentially straight on, isn't it, for the kick plate? But it veers left. But then you've got the corner that veers down to the right. Yeah, it goes down and it's off camber as well. And the apex is really late, allegedly. And most
allegedly.
I hate that corner so much. Has it got a name? Has it got a name amongst you guys?
Off camber.
Off camber. Okay.
Camber corner.
Can we call it from now on like the road to red line runoff or something? So it'll go down in folklore. But honestly, I have to say the amount of times I've been there, I've not once ever done that corner right. And sometimes people, you might have even done it, Ben. I don't know. You're just a nudge
giving you a nut.
Nudge of the steering wheel. There's the line, Lee, and you go, okay, Collie, I'll remember that one lap later. Gone. No idea. But it's so difficult. But like you say, those like nudges just to kind of get you on the right line and whatnot. It is helpful.
Yeah.
Because if not, like you say, you're driving round and you're just doing the same thing and not getting the results you want, and that's the first sign of madness, isn't it? So it's
it's a great corner. That, I mean, all the corners there. Whoever designed that track, I know the company that designed the Tilke company. They've designed quite a few of the new race circuits around the world. They're quite well known, aren't they? I probably mispronounced that slightly, but whoever actually drew it did a really, really good job. And every corner's got a different camber, different sort of entry speed and exit speed, and there's no two corners alike.
So it's a track.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. If you drive around there consistently, that's a good thing to be able to do. But that particular corner, if you're going to do any fancy shots, if the press are coming up to take some shots of the latest car and they want it going a bit sideways, I mean, we can do it on any corner really because we have enough power to do that with Porsches. But that's the corner to go to if you want to get the car moving. You just turn in a lift. Round they go, back on the power, sideways all the way through. It's lovely. It's a lovely corner. When you get it right, it's really sweet, isn't it? It just
I don't know, Ben.
To find out.
You say that. To be fair, we did something with, it was either a 997 RS 4 litre or the 997 GT2 RS we were talking about, and Mark Birkinshaw did this fantastic power down that corner for a few years ago for T911. I've got it on camera. We'll put it up on our Instagram page, people can see. But it's just a moment of sheer poetry. It really is, because I'm thinking, I can't even drive around there straight. We call it road to red line rundown or something. It's quite an exceptional corner. It has to be.
It is. It's a real challenge to get it right because, as you say, camber changes, it drops downhill, and the apex is always on the right hand side. It's quite far round, but on the right hand side.
Yeah,
it never moves. It never moves.
Well, it does. It definitely does. But it does. You're right. It's very late, and I can't remember. There is a marker, and people say aim for that, but I don't know what's going on. But,
too much going on.
It's an excuse to come back. But it is.
Your sat nav doesn't work well at the best of times, Lee, does it? So I'll tell you what, it reminded me of last year where we were talking about sitting in a car with an instructor, and when you sort of get certain instructors that manage to sort of extinguish someone's ego very quickly. And we took our little Cayman on track day, first time at Cadwell, and they had you could pull up and an instructor would jump in with you for 3 or 4 laps or whatever, just give you a few pointers and a few lines. And I pulled up to the little bit, waiting for the instructor to jump in. Anyway, someone's jumped in. As I look to my left, a lady jumps in, and bright pink helmet, and I think she was 18 or 19. So sort of considerably younger, and sort of instantly you're like, okay, and you've gone out, and I can't remember, she races in something quite up there. I think it was F2 F3 type. She's had drives, proper international drives and all this sort of stuff. And it was embarrassing when you've got a younger lady sat next to you in the car, literally just saying, no, you faster. And you realise that actually, you're the one that's, quite literally had your ego thrown out the window, and you can't drive for toffee, which is, quite funny.
She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, indeed. Don't underestimate who can be quite handy behind the wheel.
Indeed.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no, I was watching the touring cars racing at the weekend at Thruxton, and there were these young 15-year-olds driving those little Ginettas. The race was absolutely brilliant, nose to tail, and then the average age was 16, I think, 15, 16.
Wow.
And the winner was 15. He was a 15-year-old boy. Brilliant. Yeah. Incredible. He's got a good career ahead of him, that's for sure.
Excellent. Can we talk about your racing career?
Yeah.
I know you've been in quite a bit over the years, but I wonder if you could take us.
Do you want to start recently going backwards? Because I want to know about resto racing.
That's
okay.
the plan.
This cup I'm drinking my tea out of. Yeah.
Yeah, the hippie cup.
The hippie car, the Porsche car. Yeah.
So I think every other centre in the country had to pull together somebody out the centre to drive the car, and somehow Bournemouth managed to pull you out the hat.
So they were. I was asked by PCGB if I could drive that car. So you're right. The series was set up for the centres to build these race cars. The anniversary of the Boxster, and every couple of years or so they have an anniversary. Certainly recently, and they've all had this competition where they rebuild a car, and they'd all been road cars up until 2017-18 when they built these Boxster race cars, and we all raced them in 2018 and 2019. And together, lots of teams, lots of Porsche centres, and it was a great opportunity for the centres to demonstrate how well they could build a race car. So the bodywork side of the business was involved in mechanicals, and as you've had Scott, haven't you, on the podcast? He built the engine and actually built most of the race car. the whole race car, Scott and Jack, but Scott did the mechanicals and the engine, built the engine and gearbox and so on. And those two built a fantastic race car. And I knew about the series. We'd all heard about it. The launch of it was at the Experience Centre. And we knew that every centre would be putting a driver in from either the body shop or the Porsche, the centre that built the car. So it could be anyone. It could be centre principal. It could be a technician. It could be whoever, anyone. But Bournemouth, for one reason or another, weren't able to do that. Let's just leave it like that, shall we? Mm-hmm. They weren't able to do it. There was some legal things and bits and bobs. Anyway, so I got a phone call on the Monday before the first race, which was at Brand. I was up at the Experience Centre, and I'd missed my phone was off pretty much all day because I was in car, and I'd missed it. And it was Jonathan Manel, one of the senior managers from Porsche. And I thought, Jonathan's calling me on my mobile. And I think we've only ever spoken twice on my mobile. I normally see him around the office occasionally, So I called him back in the evening because he's quite desperate to speak to me. And he said, can you drive the car at the weekend? Just run it round. We just want all the cars out. They don't have a driver. Please, could you do that for us? I said, I'd love to. It's my local Porsche centre. Absolutely, I'd love to. And he said, wonderful. I'll speak to them tomorrow. We need to get you down there. And I said, well, actually, I'm free. I think on Wednesday we can go down to the seat fitting and make sure everything works, which we did. But at that point, when I put the phone down to him, I didn't have a race license. I hadn't bought it for the year. I just hadn't got around to doing it. This was March or sometime. So I rang up the MSA and they said, don't worry, send us the money and we'll email your race license that you can just use for the weekend. You've done a bit before, we can see that. That's fine. So it all came together, and I ran the car around at Brands Hatch at that first weekend. And The car ran brilliantly, and because of my experience, as you were saying, I wasn't allowed to score points. So all the teams they could accrue points throughout the year, and there were points. They looked at the mechanicals of the car, they looked at the bodywork and the marketing behind the car, and the presentation, and the
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, they looked at so many, and also there was obviously the points for the driver. So there were various different prizes awarded at the end of the year. Lots of different aspects of the car and the build of the car and so on. So Porsche Bournemouth were up for all the other awards, but obviously not the racing, because I've obviously got lots of experience. So having said that, though, there were three other guys that had raced quite a bit before in other cars, but you had to run someone from the centre to score points. So not every Porsche Centre has a racing driver that worked for them, if that makes sense. But there were 2 or 3 others who had raced a fair bit, so they drove the cars. That's sort of understandable. You'd probably put someone in who's done a bit of racing before. But most of the guys had never raced before. So part of the deal was that I would help them, very happy to walk around the paddock and be the sort of roving instructor coach for the series. And that's what Jonathan asked me to do. And I'm very happy to do that, and that one-off weekend turned out to be 2 full seasons of racing.
Amazing.
So 2018 we did, was it 4 meetings, all double headers with the Porsche Club? A great championship. I really love to go back to that one day. Qualifying in 2 races on the day. So yes, we went out and we won all the races. But Porsche Centre Bournemouth.
So casual.
It's not fair. It's like trying to crack a walnut with a sledgehammer, isn't it? I was. Do you know what? I've done 20-something years of racing, and I'm up against some chap who's never done anything. That's. So I went out there.
You just described Lee's Friday night, didn't you?
To be fair, I was just going to diplomatically ask. You must have had a very good viewpoint of the racetrack and the corners and the curbs.
So our aim was, my aim and Porsche Centre Bournemouth's aim was to see how far up the grid we could get. So we beat the majority of the Class 2 cars, and we beat probably half the Class 1 cars as well.
Fantastic.
Came in the top 10, and that just shows you what a Boxster can do. And we came in the top 10 a couple of times on some of the tracks, which was amazing, given that there are 30-odd cars on the grid, plus, in fact. So what
was the difference between a Class 1 and a Class 2 car? What's the differential there?
So the Boxsters were Class 3. So so there was a new class. So Class 1 and 2 have been running for years. So Class 1 cars are 911s. You've got 906, 997 now, and Cayman S's. Class 2 cars are Boxster. You can run 986 and 987 Gen 1, I think. So because they've got the same mechanicals. And they're the same horsepower, 260 is the maximum horsepower. So, so that's Class 1 and Class 2. And then Class 3 is basically a Class 2 car, but we don't run slicks. So Class 1 and Class 2 run slick tyres, limited slip diffs. Yeah. So the big difference between a Class 3 car Boxster, if you wanted to convert that to a Class 2 car, you put slick tyres on it, proper, Pirelli sponsored the series, Pirelli race tyres, rather than the Pirelli Trofeo R track tyre, which the Class 3 car runs, which is a very good tyre, but it's not a slick. And also you can run a limited slip differential in Class 2 and Class 1 cars, and you can't in a Class 3. It has to be a standard drivetrain from a road car.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also the Class 2 and Class 1 can run any damper spring setup that they wish, as long as it all fits in a standard. You can't go and buy a endurance corner and stick it to the car. It has to sit in the normal sort of bolt holes that you'd find for the road car. But it's free on dampers and free on springs and so on. Whereas Class 3 run a spec damper. It's adjustable, but it's a spec damper, and everyone has the same spring. In 2018, the cars actually ran standard road spec suspension, so they had all the normal safety gear you'd have to turn it into a race car. But it was basically a fast track car. Then in 2019, we had a full race suspension set up on the car. So the cars went 2 or 3 seconds a lap faster in 2019. So it got us much closer to the Class 1 and Class 2 cars, which was a lot of fun. Everyone developed through that first year, 2018, and 1 or 2 drivers in particular, I'll mention Will Hislop, who really came on. If you're a decent race driver, by year 2, you will be on the pace anyway. And Will was right on the pace in year 2, 2019. So if you look at any race series, the top guys, they might have a learning year, and then you'll often win or do well in your second year. And Will is one of those drivers. He really has got racing in his blood. Very, very good, very instinctive. And in 2019, really came on leaps and bounds to make it a little bit more fair. But I was allowed to score points in 2019, and we had a wonderful series, and we won the championship, which was great. Get that glossed over with. But I had to run Success Palace. So I started with 30 kilograms extra. Then we went to 45, and then we finished the season with 15 kilos extra in the car. And that leveled things out in a nice way. So that was fair. But at that point, Will was faster than me with 60 kilos. He was then off and gone, and he won 2 of the races. So he did really well. Or was it one? I can't remember. Actually, Matt Bird won one of the races from Pistonheads. Yes. So by the end of and Will, I don't think they raced last year, Will in his car, but he's racing this year, and he's won the first 4 races. I think he's very, very good in his Pink Pig car. So it was a lovely series to be involved with, and very, very nice to come out of it with a championship win.
Can anybody now rock up and race in that series, or is it still PC? Yeah, is it still Porsche Centre?
For the centres? No, absolutely. Yeah, good point. So last year, 2020, is when they changed the rules and allowed anyone to enter. They would really love the car to have a traditional Porsche sort of colour scheme on it. You were saying our car was painted like the old hippie car from the 70s, the 917 hippie car. So they really like you to get into the spirit of things in that respect. But no, anyone can build a Class 3 Porsche Boxster car to race in the club championship. And there are, if you look at the entry sheet and the race results, there are some of the Porsche centres have sold their cars, like Bournemouth have sold the car that I was racing. So, but there are quite 3 or 4 or 5 maybe centres still involved, and there are now, I've been looking at the results, another 4 or 5 brand new drivers who have come in with cars of their own. They bought some of the cars that were originally built, actually, and so anyone can join. It's a really, really lovely series to get involved with, and a really good, you can do Class 3, and if you start to do well in that, you can move to Class 2, then Class 1. It's got a really good stepping stone.
Yeah.
Do you reckon is it still fairly serious money even to run a car in Class 3, or do you think can it be done on a budget?
Nothing is yes, it can be done on a, yes, I would 100, but a motorsport budget.
Yeah.
So I was coaching one of the drivers last year in 2020, who's now moved up to Class 2 actually for this year. But we noticed a couple of guys who had come in with cars, and we got chatting to one at Alton Park, and he had bought this car and turned it into a race car for £12,000. So this was a 986 Boxster, standard road car that he had done the work on the engine himself, but he hadn't rebuilt it completely. He had just done a little bit of a freshen up here and there. He had bought the bits you need to buy to bolt to it. It's very easy to do. As I say, the springs and dampers are easy to buy and just bolt on. The roll bars are all GT3 RS roll bars. They just literally bolt onto a 986. And
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously all the normal safety kit that you put in a race car, the roll bar, the seat, the extinguisher, and so on. It's not that overly difficult to do. And I just realised it's very dark in my room, isn't it? Sorry, I've gone black and white. For £12,000, it was around that figure, not too much. And those cars will be worth that money. Or somewhere between 12 and 15 he built it for. That's right. He was telling me. I'm remembering the story now. But they'll be worth that all day long, if not more.
How much does it cost for the weekend? So say you're doing 4 weekends. How much is it?
Obviously, if you trailer it, the tyres, you have to. I think they have to run the full season on 2 sets.
Right.
That's what we did, and you just rotate around those 8 tires, and by the end of the year, we had worn out both sets. But we did 5 meetings, 10 races.
Yeah.
Plus qualifying, plus a couple of days of testing as well before a few of the races. So the tires wear really well, and then you had the wet tires were, I'm not sure what they're using this year, but we had a Pirelli road tire, just a standard Pirelli road tire, which was with much head, obviously, and that's used as the wet tire. So you only really need use 2 wheels, one with wets and one with dries, and that's fine. You just rotate through those. Pirelli are always at the track to help. If you need to change tires, they'll do that for you, no problems at all. If you're trailering the car there, the entry fee plus a bit of fuel, and I reckon you could do it guessing here slightly, somewhere between 5 and 10,000, maybe. Something
What,
like that for a full,
for a season?
maybe 15 if you were, maybe, as long as nothing goes wrong. I don't think it would cost much more than that. I know that the Porsche Centre Bournemouth budget was taking aside the building of the car, which I think they did spend just over 40, completely going to town. Obviously, the car was like a brand new car. It was immaculate. Gone through the workshop, gone through the workshop. It was back to bare metal. It was a brand new car. As they all were. But running it, we stayed in, there was a team of about 5 or 6 staying in travel lodges and on. So you've got that cost as well. But you could take that out if you stayed in your van or stayed in your tent. I did that for my first 3 or 4 seasons of racing back in the 90s. I was in a tent, racing in the Toka series in single seaters. I was in the tent. You had all these big motorhomes all around us with millions of pounds being spent. And I was in the tent with my brother most of the time, or sleeping in my old Golf if it rained. It's a relatively inexpensive championship to do. You don't need bucket loads of cash. So I'd say you'd comfortably do it on 20. You'd need anywhere near that if you're running it yourself.
If you can pick up a car for 15-ish, a second-hand one and whatnot, and you can run it for 15-ish, and it's still worth something close to that when you finish with it, then. Yeah, and that's cheap racing, isn't it? Christ, that's it's club motorsport, but it's high level club motorsport. Okay,
that's not really low. Having raced in lots of wonderful, lovely series, the Porsche Club Championship is really well run. They run on a really good circuit. So when we went to Silverstone, we were on the Grand Prix circuit. When we went to Brands Hatch, we were on the Grand Prix circuit. We also raced on the Indy. We did two meetings. We went on the big circuit at Alton, the big circuit at Snetterton. So they don't go to the cheap, smaller, they go to the big ones. And you get a really well-run series, very welcoming, very fair, very even. There are some big teams running in those championships, as well as people turning up with the trailer on the back, and those people win. They win against the big teams as well. If they prep the car well and they're a good driver, they win. So it's a really fantastic championship. I was very impressed. I knew it was good, but Porsche GB support it as well, so they wouldn't want to get involved in something that wasn't so good, I guess. But I was very, I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I was very pleased how well it all went. And the whole paddock and everyone was well turned out, and there were good meetings. We were supporting the Blancpain, it's changed name, hasn't it? For the World GT Championship, whatever it's called now, the Blancpain series, the GT3s that were running a few years ago. They have changed the name, haven't they, of the series? But you're supporting championships like that, and it's really big race meetings. Andy, you came along, didn't you? I saw you at Brands Hatch at one of the meetings.
That's right.
And we do the Porsche Festival at Brands, which runs there every year. So it's it's a fantastic championship, so I'd advise anyone to get involved.
How much experience do you think someone actually needs before they could enter a race? Because obviously, you hear now and again people. I can't remember someone we were chatting to recently who, to get into racing, he went and bought a race car, took it to the track, and just next thing you know, he's in a race. And what do you think is a clever or a sensible line of entry if someone thought actually they might fancy getting involved in that?
In the Porsche Club or any racing?
I suppose any, but certainly the Category 3 stuff to start with.
Yeah, well, the lovely thing with Category 3 is that you can run in it as a novice. The Porsche Club Championship, actually, there were some novices that were in Class 1 as well. I remember passing a 997. He had his novice cross on the back. It was I think his first race was at Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. Wow, what a
first race. Baptism of fire.
I remember passing him and having a chat to him after in the collecting area, and he was like wide-eyed. Oh my! And the first thing, he couldn't realise a Boxster could pass a 997. I said, well, if you go through the corner a bit faster, you can go faster down the straight. So yes, it's a great championship to do that. I wouldn't advise someone to jump straight into the 997 or a 996 with slick tyres on. That's probably a bit of a big step. The Boxster it's a lovely car because and there's a number of people I know who have driven them now with lots of experience, and they've all turned up and said, wow, that car's really fun to drive. But it's not too quick. It's 260 horsepower. It's got plenty of grip. The brakes work really well. It's mid-engine. It's balanced beautifully. So it's a really good car to start in, I think. I think, if you're looking to get involved in racing, obviously you need to go off and pass tests and get your racing license and do all those things. A couple of track days with someone sat next to you. I'd really advise, don't go and buy endless supplies of new sets of tyres. and waste thousands and thousands of pounds. We've sort of touched on this already, haven't we? Pay for someone who knows what they're doing to sit next to you and guide you in the right direction. You will speed up your learning path so much quicker, and you will then get into that, and that person can help you. Like I do, and a number of people, you mentioned Rob earlier, there's all sorts of us guys who will help you all the way through. Hold your hand all the way through to your first races and beyond. And I would say, it depends how quickly you learn, but yeah, maybe one season of 5 to 10 track days, and then just get on and do it. I mean,
Come on then, Joe.
Yeah.
Time have excuses.
I mean, race cars that are built out of road cars, you can put a second seat in them as well. So you can do a test day. I'm an ARDS instructor, so on an official test day, not a track day, test day, I can sit next to you. So only ARDS instructors can sit next to race drivers on test days. And we can say, so you can you'll be out there in the mix with other race cars whizzing around you. But it's good to have someone sat next to you and guiding you through. And then at the end of the day, the instructor/coach has got to step out the car when the lights turn from red to green. You've got to do it yourself. And it depends how quickly you learn, but I don't think it's not this mystical thing that is difficult to do. It's difficult to do it really well, let's say, but just a medium level of competence, and you could drive a race car quite comfortably around a track and do okay. Yeah. And the more that you do, the more money that you spend, the better you'll get. I mean, the more you do of anything, right, the better you'll get. So that series in particular is a really lovely series to get involved with. And I know it well, so I'll always push them. But Porsche is, very much in my heart and soul. So it's a great championship to be involved with, and an easy championship. Now they've got those 3 tiers. That class 3 is an easy class to get involved with. Build a car or get someone to build one for you. It's not difficult because you don't have to do much to a road car to turn it into a race car, and then just do a few track days in it and get racing. Just do it.
Excellent, awesome.
Yeah.
Very quick question for you, Ben. I know you mentioned very briefly earlier that the way things set up, you're self-employed. Does that mean are your services available outside of the Porsche Centre? If someone wanted to take their Porsche around another track somewhere else, do you go off and do those sorts of days, with people?
Yes, I do. So okay. I look after a couple of people. Obviously, it's been a difficult year the last couple of years, but the last year and a bit. But yeah, very much so. So I do, and I've got 2 people at the moment that I'm looking after who are racing in various series, and a couple of others I'm chatting to actually. So we'll see what comes at someone in a single seater series, which is quite interesting.
Wow.
A young lad who's 17, who's actually just won a couple of races at the weekend. So he's actually doing all right to start. So I'll be coming in quite high up maybe in his career. But yeah, no, I do get involved with that really detailed race coaching and looking at all the data and understanding that. So yeah, it can be a bit of a minefield, I think, if you're unfamiliar to it. And as the years have rolled by, as I said, I'm 47 now, so I've seen a lot of it. So we can help you along the pathway. Yeah, I do. It's fun. It's fun to sit next to people and just see how their knowledge builds and their journey into a racing car and feeling comfortable, and then suddenly seeing someone have their first race. It's actually I feel really proud with some of the people I work with. It's great.
Shall we do the 10 Porsche questions that we ask everybody?
We definitely should.
Episode.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that cool? Yeah. I'm hoping somebody's got questions. Sorry.
Is this a quick fire thing? Do I have to reply really quickly, or do I have time to think about it?
No time to think.
Yeah,
exactly,
okay.
I've got them lined up.
Have you got them ready, Andy?
I have. You ready?
Over to you.
Quick fire. Air or water?
Air.
Ooh.
For me personally, sat on my driveway.
Okay.
To race tomorrow, water.
What is your favourite Porsche model?
It has to be a 911 of some description. They're so iconic. It's our halo car.
Yeah,
right?
Go on, give us a model. I can't let you sit on the fence with 911.
That is a stick on the fence, definitely, isn't it?
Okay.
It's very diplomatic, isn't it?
Every year or so, a new RS comes out and it is better than the previous one. So I'm going to say the next RS.
That's amazing. Yeah, very good.
He's a politician.
Okay, who is your ultimate Porsche icon?
I would really have. I mentioned Bob Wallach earlier, and I would really have dearly loved to have met him. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible. He obviously died a few years back, didn't he? But gosh, lovely to work with Richard Atwood almost daily up at the Experience Centre. It's got to be just those amazing portrait guys that I work with. You know, Richard Atwood, Derek Bell. I'm gonna just stop at those.
Awesome.
Okay,
Good choice.
what's your favourite track?
Oh gosh. In the UK, I would say Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit.
Okay.
Abroad, Spa or Paul Ricard. They're both amazing.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Tafuk or not Tafuk?
Definitely Tafuk.
Stock or hot rod?
Stock.
Narrow or wide body?
Wide.
Cars and coffee or a track day?
Oh, track day.
And lastly, do you do back seats in a 911?
Do I do them?
Well, would you if you
Would
had a
I-
911, would you have it? Would you have back seats in it or not?
Do you
I
dig
don't.
them?
I don't need them. No.
Don't need them. Wow.
No kids,
no.
then.
They
They're out the
travel.
window.
They travel in the other car. Yeah.
Sod the kids.
I'll take them one. I'll take them one at a time. Yeah. Oh dear. Good questions. Good questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Been wonderful to talk.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for.
Well, it has been a pleasure. And Ben, you are absolutely one of the nicest and most humble people that work in this industry. So tops to you. And next time we'll get you on and we'll get you off the fence a little bit as well.
Oh, sorry. Have I sat on the fence a bit too much? Apologies.
No, it's golden. Like I say, there are many wonderful people that work in this industry, and that's what this podcast is all about: is getting them on and learning their stories. So it's been great to learn yours.
I'll have a glass of wine next time, shall I? rather than my water, which I've been drinking. Then I might fall off the fence if I drink a glass of wine.
I might ask you a few of those questions again and see if we can answer.
Yeah. That RS with the off, it was just the start.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the Carrera GT that they totaled?
I went to I've seen one Carrera GT go through the barriers once, but not with us. It was with some other experience that we were involved with. We turned up to this and it was like, oh my god, look at that Carrera GT. There's not much left of that. That was a shame, but there you go. I think he had two, so he wheeled the other one out for the afternoon.
Not bad. The backup CGT.
I know.
Said nobody. Ben, brilliant, mate. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you coming on Road to Redline.
Indeed. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely. Cheers.
So, chaps, what do you reckon to Ben?
I think we need a part two. I think we only sort of hit the top of the iceberg of Ben's history, especially when it comes to racing. So
I reckon he's got a few colourful stories from back in the day, and all this sort of tenting around the racetrack. I reckon there's a few more stories to come out of that.
Yeah, but it's so interesting to hear about PEC. I personally I've not been there, other than a quick drive by. And finding out how interesting it was as far as when you were purchasing a car, that you can go there and sort of test the car as far as working out what you want your car to be built as. I didn't realise you could do that. I thought it was like you bought the car and then you got a half a day to go and work out how it drives. But it's,
I hadn't gotten onto that. The whole sort of, you can go and place your order, then go to PEC, decide what spec you want, and then go and order it. I think that's a great way to buy your car. I don't know if many people actually know that either. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that or get to do that. So definitely want to take up on, I think.
Yeah, tops.
Absolutely spot on.
We've got a couple of events coming up that people need to keep free in their diaries, haven't we?
Yeah, certainly have. We're still keeping the dates free for 3rd of July for our event. More details to follow very soon. Once we've named it.
Yeah, we haven't come up with a name. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we're going to do that in the next day. I challenge us. We've got 24 hours, boys.
Yeah.
I reckon by the time this actually drops, we should be named and tickets will be available. So I reckon, if you've been sleeping on a rock somewhere, you need to go and buy your ticket now.
Yeah.
So that's 3rd of July, which is the Road to Redline event. And we're all going to rock up for Silverstone Classic on the Saturday with a Road to Redline little lineup / stand in the club area. So if anyone would like to join for that, we'll have a booking code that we will pass around shortly. So it's that's July the 31st on the Saturday.
Excellent. We've got a few new Patreons. I don't know much details about them, but I will name them. We've got Dennis McGill, Lee Kennedy, and Graham Pointer. Thank you very much for all joining in the last week or so. Want to know a bit more? I've investigated who you are. I'll revisit that.
So due diligence incoming.
Yes. Sorry for my lax attitude this week. I do apologise.
Send us some pictures and specs of your car. Make Andy's life.
Yeah, do that, please.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, that concludes another stellar episode, gents.
Yeah,
Indeed,
wonderful. And looking forward to part 2 of Ben's story as well. Great stuff. See you later.
You've been listening to Road to Redline, the #1 Porsche and car podcast fueled by our generous Patreons. If you'd like to join in supporting the podcast, please see patreon.com/Road to Redline and find us on Instagram.